This grid contains exactly 30,000 squares. Each represents a single day of an average human life, a surprisingly small, quantifiable area. For a 30-year-old, 11,000 are already gone. This time is permanently exhausted, a sunk cost that can never be recovered. Despite this fixed math, our experience of time is fluid. In childhood, a single afternoon in a sun-drenched backyard could feel like an eternity, but as adults, years seem to vanish in the space of a few months. This subjective acceleration is known as the time unit paradox. While this acceleration feels inevitable, it is actually the result of a specific biological mechanism. By understanding how the brain records data, we can intervene to slow our perception of time back down. The human brain does not measure time using a standard clock. Instead, it gauges duration based on the volume of new experiences it must record and process. For a child, almost every stimulus is novel. The brain remains in a high-alert recording state, writing dense logs of data for every hour of exploration. This heavy processing load makes a single day feel long and significant. In adulthood, routine takes over. When you eat the same breakfast and take the same commute every day, the brain enters an energy-saving mode. It recognizes the pattern, decides there is nothing new to learn, and stops hitting the record button. This creates time blindness, a state where weeks of repetitive activity leave almost no trace in your memory. Standard productivity advice often worsens this blur. By filling a calendar with even more efficient routine tasks, we give the brain fewer reasons to engage, causing the years to slip by even faster. Gaining more life requires a shift in focus toward time expansion. We must intentionally force the brain to turn its recording light back on. Snapping the brain out of its energy-saving mode requires systematic novelty, the practice of designing moments that demand the nervous system's full attention. We find these moments in the adjacent possible. This is the narrow boundary between what you already know and the completely unknown. Stepping just 1 degree outside of your comfort zone provides enough complexity to force the brain into a high-focus recording state. One way to trigger this is deliberate amateurism. When you attempt a skill you are bad at, you shock your ego and remove the ease of routine. This lack of proficiency creates the high-focus processing needed to stretch your subjective reality. Inserting intentional friction into a frictionless day, whether through a new hobby or a different route to work, slows down your perception of the world. This recording state is metabolically expensive. A brain that lacks energy will struggle to maintain focus, regardless of how much novelty you provide. Because cognitive energy is a finite resource, the morning and evening versions of yourself possess very different capacities for novelty. When you are physically and mentally depleted at the end of the day, your brain naturally defaults to the path of least resistance, routine. Emotions also play a role in this energy economy. The chemical release of raw emotion lasts exactly 90 seconds. But ruminating on difficult feelings keeps the stress response elevated. This emotional debt drains the energy baseline you need for time expansion. To protect your cognitive fuel, use strategic incompetence. By performing poorly at non-essential, trivial tasks, you decrease the likelihood that others will assign them to you, preserving your energy for moments that matter. Managing these finite metabolic reserves is the true currency of an expansive life. Dynamic human interaction provides some of the most unpredictable stimuli available. Because other people are inherently complex, they serve as a constant source of neurological novelty. While close friends provide comfort, weak ties, casual acquaintances, provide growth. These distant connections act as bridges to entirely new viewpoints, forcing your brain to synthesize foreign information and break out of its usual thought patterns. We often bond more deeply through shared friction than through shared comfort. Overcoming a challenge together, like pushing a broken car through the rain, creates a more intense neurological connection than a routine luxury experience. Curating a diverse and challenging network essentially outsources the generation of novelty to the people around you. Optimizing for time affluence means prioritizing the quantity of your free time rather than the accumulation of financial wealth. A person working 30 hours a week for a modest salary has a larger budget of biological time than a high earner working 80 hours. The real cost of a high income is the volume of life experiences sacrificed to maintain it. Maintaining time affluence requires a shift in how we consume. Objects we own become background noise. A car you drive every day or a house you maintain becomes a static part of the environment that the brain no longer needs to process. By renting physical objects and purchasing fleeting experiences, we keep our environment in a state of high contrast change. This chart tracks how we value purchases. The line for physical objects drops quickly as they become routine, but the line for experiences, like travel, moves upward. These moments appreciate in value as they're stored in your memory bank. Designing a life this way builds a library of distinct, vivid footage that makes your remaining days feel dense and meaningful. To build that library, we must move away from rigid, multi-year plans and instead treat life as a portfolio of 5-minute micro-experiments. You can't think your way to an optimized life. You must test your way there. Running small, low-risk trials, like trying a new habit for 1 week, allows you to see what actively generates energy and novelty. The 30,000-day limit is not a reason for dread, but a creative constraint. Just as a small canvas forces a painter to be decisive, the fixed nature of our lifespan demands that we act with intention. Time will pass regardless of how you use it. But by pursuing novelty and fiercely protecting your energy, you have the power to turn the camera back on and expand the psychological length of the time you have left.